got a post on organizational culture. I think you and I differ on this. I don't know if you create culture or if it's organic and it just happens. So I know that's not specifically what this post is about, but how would you verbalize, how would you explain culture?
So I think culture is the shared behaviors of everyone in the organization. So what I mean by that is culture is actions, right? It's not defined by words. It's not what we write on the wall. It's not what we say it is. It's what it is. And I do think culture is created, and then it grows and compounds organically in a good culture, right? So in a good culture, you're going to create the seeds of that through effective leadership and a focus on a variety of different things that will drive culture. We could talk about it. And then it is going to take on a life of its own, similar to a snowball, right? The snowball builds itself into a snowball the size of a yoga ball, right? If you're rolling it down the right hill, but somebody formed the first ball and started it down the hill, right? Very deliberately, right? There's very few snowballs the size of yoga balls that somebody didn't put in motion, right? They just randomly went down the hill. So I think culture is one of those things that it's hard to see and identify, but you know it when you see it. And that sort of sounds like a cop-out, but if you think about your experience, and I mean, you've worked at a lot of different companies, especially in this industry, you know the ones that have a good culture and the ones that don't.
It's
right?
funny.
And it's not always like, these ones checked off these and didn't check off this, but you just know inherently. You get in with the people, you start talking to the people, you start working with the people, and you know they have a good culture, they don't have a good culture, right? Yeah. Or they had a good culture and they grew too big and now they're struggling with maintaining that culture, right? You see those things.
I see it, and it's shocking how quickly you can see it. Just doing education at companies.
Yeah.
I walk in, you can see there are certain places where people are afraid to ask questions, or people that are just waiting to see, okay, what is that person going to say? And then we're just going to follow the lead, or, oh, that person, like it's shocking how quickly you can see a positive or negative culture.
Yeah. And I think to me, the most important piece of a good culture is the people. So we'll hire around culture. If we had somebody who was an amazing fit for a job from a technical perspective, but we thought they were going to be poison in the culture or they just weren't going to work, we will not make the hire. We have let people go that were competent from a technical perspective in their job, potentially even really good, but it was a problem culturally. It was creating other problems for us around coworkers and frankly the cultural piece that we want to drive, right? It becomes very poisonous. So for us, the who of the team really, really matters, right? You can't just take, and it takes intentionality. You can't take a random group of people in a room and suddenly decide, I'm going to build good culture. That's not going to happen. So from that perspective, to your point, you can't just create culture. But if you take the right people and you have a clear vision of what you want that culture to be, you're assessing people, whether it's through DISC and Working Genius and Myers-Briggs and things like that. So you have an understanding of how people are going to tick on your team and how they're going to interact with people. And then you're very intentionally building them out to reach that goal that you want in terms of what you want the culture to look like. It's very possible. We did it here, right? And there's plenty of places that have better culture than us, and they've done it very, very effectively. It's very intentional. It comes down to the people, who they are, right? And then you have those right people in the team, culture starts to build on itself. Right? And you'll get cultural elements that you didn't even think of, but have become part of your culture that other people will say, right? A lot of times we do a lot of pitches, right? Investor pitches, RFP responses to cities, right? Trying to bang our chest and here's how awesome Procopio is, right? To win business. And a lot of times, I've got my shtick and I'm just like on autopilot. Like I know what I say the same thing all the time. I do my thing. A lot of times I'll hear other senior people in our shop say things and about what our culture is. And I'm like, I never even thought about that, but they're right? It's just developed. That wasn't part of my plan per se for what I wanted the culture to be, but it actually developed to there. And that's happened organically. So I think it really matters. And I think that the mistake businesses make when they try to drive this is they become very static with the team members and the employee base. If you're going to drive to good culture, you have to be willing to hire and fire on the cultural elements. right? You won't drive good culture if you say, well, 70% of my team members are the right team members and the others are not. You have to be willing to make the hard calls to put the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, then start worrying about what seats people are in. We have absolutely made hires here that were a pure cultural hire because we identified someone. We weren't quite sure what job they were going to do. There's been people that have interviewed for a job and we're like, well, it's not that job, but we love that person and they're going to be an amazing cultural fit. They're hired. What they're going to do, got to figure that out. But we want them on the team, right? That's when you start to understand that you're making decisions, real tactical business decisions based on the culture.
Yeah. We don't disagree then. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. It was
both. Okay if we did.
It's both. Yeah. No, I was itching for a fight, but I don't get to fight. Yeah.
We're the iceberg in culture. We can actually agree to disagree. That's okay.
Yeah. No, great.